James, you're currently about an hour out of Bakhmut. It's too dangerous for you to do lives like this with us from the city, but you were there this morning. Just tell us a bit about what you witnessed there and what's changed since you filmed there just a few days ago.
Well, what has changed, and that was told, a military person told us that, a soldier told us that in the city earlier today, or probably a couple of hours ago. He told us that, in fact, there had been some violent fighting over the past few days. The weather had changed and it had become more wet and less cold. And in fact, while the Russians pushed into the city, they managed to capture parts of the eastern sector of Bakhmut. And what was happening while we were there this morning, and we could hear this, we could hear automatic gunfire and actually street fighting on the streets of Bakhmut in the eastern part that you cannot access without military armored escort, because it's way too dangerous. But you can clearly hear it from the west. There were fighting in the streets, and we were told that they'd managed to recapture most of eastern Bakhmut, and that basically, the Russian forces were just holding on to a very small patch at this stage. But what we did also see was the fact that indeed the Ukrainian forces are digging themselves in the western part of Bakhmut and the whole of the center. They are digging trenches. They are putting up roadblocks with concrete blocks everywhere in the city. They're getting ready for what could very well become a very tough street fight in the streets of Bakhmut. Though indeed morale is high. All the soldiers we were speaking to were telling us that they feel that they won't get there, but they want to be ready in case that does happen. And basically the whole idea is that the soldiers are telling us that they will hold on to Bakhmut whatever happens.
And James, that picture you paint there sounds pretty desperate for any civilians that do remain in Bakhmut. Is it now impossible for civilians to get out?
Now, civilians can still get out. That evacuation you saw was just 2 days ago. These buses are still running. But the thing is, a lot of the people who are still in town are either still there simply because they can't go, because they're too old or too sick. There are their carers who also have to stay. And then there are people who simply feel that they prefer to stay. We spoke to a lady today who told us that while she saw the pictures of these flats in Dnipro, where she says, they say this is where we'll be staying, but I know that that's not the case, that in fact the places where we'll be staying will be awful, etc. So she does not have confidence in the fact of being relocated without having much money. Obviously, this lady didn't really have the means to rent a flat in Dnipro, for example, and basically she told us she preferred to stay. But she also told us that she was very afraid at the idea that soldiers might install positions inside her building and that she'd be shelled by the Russians. Another component, and this is an important one as well, is that there are some people in the city of Bakhmut right now who are still pro-Russian, or on the line, if you like, between being pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian, and who are just sitting it out. That is the case, for example, of the father of Angelina that you see in that report. So it's a mix of desperate people who can't really move, and then people who are just willing to sit it out. But what's incredible is that you see these people walking around like zombies, in a sense, in the city. They don't even react when there is, for example, heavy shelling. One soldier was telling us it's incredible that these people are just walking around, and when you hear a huge explosion, they don't even react because they're so used to it.
James Andre, thanks very much indeed for your reporting there from not far from Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine.